Tonight, fears a new national agreement could hurt the local seafood industry, and why Mid-North ice cream producer Golden North is tasting success once again.
This is Southern Cross News with Fraser Goldsworthy.
Good evening. There are fears the southern bluefin tuna industry could lose millions due to a new trade agreement. Port Lincoln's world-renowned fishing industry is facing the loss of its competitive edge on the market as a tariff advantage is rubbed out.
This is what a costly handshake looks like. Last week, 11 countries, including Australia, met in Chile to sign a new Trans-Pacific partnership without the inclusion of the United States. While there's advantages to the agreement, a downfall could be felt on the Eyre Peninsula.
Between now and 2020, it's going to cost us about $5 million a year, and after 2020, about $8 to $10 million a year.
The new agreement will essentially wipe out a tariff under the old Australian-Japan Free Trade Deal. Now, 3 of the biggest tuna industries in the world will be competing under the same rules.
Mexico is our major competitor in the Japanese market, over which we had previously a 3.5% tariff advantage, which is now reduced to 0.
Jobs won't be affected by the new agreement, and the government won't be issuing any handouts. The industry says it's being expected to absorb the loss and keep its head above water.
It was put to us by a senior politician. The problem in Port Lincoln is that people do take it in the chin and just move on. They are resilient. Other cities in rural South Australia and throughout Australia, they create a sense of crisis, which Port Lincoln doesn't.
Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
Local leaders say a bunch of renewable energy projects across the Upper Spencer Gulf is translating into an economic boom. They say a huge spike in the number of jobs up for grabs is cementing the region as the place to be.
An economic corridor that's set to boost employment in the region. It's the latest praise being heaped on the Upper Spencer Gulf.
And the total request for all the labour there would be in the vicinity of 3,500 people over the next 18 months.
The extra 3,500 jobs on offer are all thanks to the recent energy investments in the area.
The CU River Mining at Cooper Pedy, there's the Carapatina, there's the solar thermal, and also DP Energy, and also the Bungala energy project there just outside of Stirling North, and also the energy park for Crystal Brook.
Port Augusta's solar thermal plant is expected to be a major contributor to job investments in the region.
As I see it, the next 18 months, those projects will be up and running.
Billions of dollars is set to be put into the pockets of local businesses over the next 1.5 years in the Upper Spencer Gulf alone.
There's over $5.5 billion worth of private investment coming into that section there. It just goes to show you that the Upper Spencer Gulf is alive and thriving. It will be the powerhouse of the state again, or Australia, where it was years ago.
Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
Greenpeace and Port Augusta's Dustbusters group have taken their campaign to Adelaide, calling on Jay Weatherall to stand up for clean air. With just days until the state election, the pair is calling for Labor's commitment to full remediation of Port Augusta's problematic power station site.
Taking the Clear Air campaign to the city.
When you have a duster event, it affects their health, it affects their well-being, it'll build up over a number of years.
It's been going on for a long time. They can't wait any longer.
Greenpeace protesters and Port Augusta residents walked the streets of Adelaide, scaling iconic statues to give them a bit of a makeover.
Just to indicate to the people in Adelaide that dust was an issue in Port Augusta.
Port Augusta resident and business owner Alan McMahon joined the group to voice his concern.
That's what they will remember from Port Augusta years into the future. The dust events will be a negative image for Port Augusta.
With SA Best and the Liberals on board for the full remediation of the power station site, just days from the state election, Labor is yet to make any promises.
And what we'd like to see is for Jay Weatherall and his Labor Party to commit to world's best practice in the remediation of the former power station site.
The group say they'll be keeping up the fight. Amelia Simpson, Southern Cross News.
Golden North has been awarded the title of the best tasting ice cream in the nation. The company says it's all thanks to decades of hard work, and the secret is keeping it local.
It's a local icon loved by generations of South Australians, but it's not just us who love the taste. A nationwide survey has seen Golden North's honey and vanilla top the charts in terms of the best flavours.
So our 2 litre range specifically, which is a range of 9 different flavours, with vanilla and honey the most popular.
The Laura factory has been mixing around 12.5 million litres of ice cream every year since 1923. It was the only product out of 11 brands to receive a 5-star rating for taste, consistency and overall satisfaction, stealing the title from other Australian favourites like Cadbury and Ben & Jerry's.
2.5 million giant twins a year, and on average we're producing about 4,000 2 litre containers every 4 hours.
Golden North believes the secret to winning the best tasting ice cream in Australia is to use locally sourced products from around the mid-north and to make ice cream the traditional way.
Milk comes direct from farms through the mid-north and the Barossa, and our cream's sourced from South Australia as well.
It's hoped the award will help drive interstate sales. 12 new jobs have been created since the product was first taken over the border late last year.
This will help with our transfer of products interstate, so we've only just started going nationally interstate since October 2017.
The local community and factory workers are proud to call Golden North their own.
It shows that the consumers love our product and we're doing a great job.
Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
After the break, a major Broken Hill event rescheduled as works continue on the trouble-plagued Civic Centre. That's next. SA Best is demanding answers as to why the state government is yet to approve plans to drill for mining in Lake Gairdner. Mining magnate Rudy Gomez has spent 20 years developing plans to drill in the Salt Lake in northern SA with the permission of traditional landowners.
And I have met all the requirements, and I cannot see why the government will not grant me permission.
And let's get on with the job of expanding our communities and for the prosperity of the regions.
Mr Gomez says despite being told he'd get approval before the government was placed into caretaker mode, it didn't come. Labor says the last step of the legal process, however, is underway. Broken Hill City Council has been forced to push back the date of the Civic Ball as work on the issue-plagued Civic Centre continues. The Mayor says it was the decision of this year's debutantes and their families.
Still locked up tight with no signs of opening soon.
I wasn't confident that the date would be right for the ball.
As refurbishment works on the Civic Centre continue with a long list of defects to fix, the city's premier debutante ball, booked in for May, has been rescheduled. Mayor Daria Turley says she sat down with the Debs and their families and gave them 3 options.
That we could cancel the ball for 2018, that we could move it to keep the date but move it to another venue, or we could move the date of the ball.
They agreed to change the date of the ball to the 24th of August, with everyone hoping the works will be completed before then.
There's a lot of legal issues still going on that we're addressing, so we can't talk about a lot of things, but what we can say is that it is progressing. We've discovered a few little hiccups along the way, but that will be addressed.
The Civic Centre has been closed for almost a year after it hosted the Nationals Party Conference and last year's Civic Ball.
The defects that we identified are being addressed. We're confident that we're moving forward.
And the Mayor says the date change could be a blessing in disguise.
Apart from the preparation time, but it also gives an opportunity for other Debs who wanted to do the debutante ball to now say, well, I'll be a bit older, I can actually apply now.
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Well, another major part of this year's election campaign has been centred around energy. Our region has felt both the closure of Port Augusta's power station and the rise of the renewable energy products on the EP. Here's John Hunt on what the major players will do to provide power.
There's no doubt the state's transition towards solar and wind has been the subject of heavy scrutiny and intense debate. Liberal leader Stephen Marshall says Labor has failed.
When they came to power was the second cheapest in Australia. We've now got the highest price, the least reliable grid, and Labor are scrambling.
Mr Marshall says a Liberal government will build an interconnector between SA and New South Wales to shore up baseload power. It won't turn its back on renewables, but expects projects to have storage capabilities. Mr Marshall also says he'll work to develop power plans around the wireless steelworks.
We're very excited about what Sanjeev Gupta and the Gupta family group are doing for the people of Whyalla and, quite frankly, the people of South Australia.
Labor's Eddie Hughes says the future of energy generation is on the Eyre Peninsula.
10,000 megawatts of potential capacity down there, and you couldn't even put a figure on the solar.
Labor is heavily backing solar and wind, including the plans of GFG Alliance. Mr Hughes says the cost of clean energy technology is rapidly decreasing, making it more viable.
Slash electricity bills by 30%. In addition to just generally driving down electricity prices.
SA Best says the immediate thing that must be done is slash the power bills of businesses and residents. It's pledging to set up a member-owned electricity retailer, which will remove the conflict of price versus profit.
Demand on profit is no longer there, so therefore those savings are directly put back into the consumers, being South Australians, whether they be South Australian households, small, medium or large businesses.
It's also putting the pressure back on the major parties, reserving the right to withdraw support if prices aren't reduced by 20% in 2019.
They're working with our policies also, that Nick's quite happy to even fall on his sword and actually say, we endeavoured for 2 years.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Still ahead, Broken Hill prepares for a big weekend at the races. That's next. A Port Lincoln arts hub could be relocated, with council looking to decide what the future holds for its iconic building. Arteria, built in the 50s, was once a symbol of unity in Port Lincoln, but now its future remains uncertain.
It's not hard to miss Port Lincoln's iconic arts hub, but up close, it's not so easy on the eye.
We know it's not up to scratch now. What do we need to do to revitalise the space?
The blue and green building just off Mortlock Terrace was originally built by the railway back in the 1950s. Today the building still stands bright, but its future is not so clear.
We really want to have a long, hard think about its uses, its future uses.
Currently occupied by the Port Lincoln City Band, the local quilters and various arts groups, council is unsure what to do and is putting it to the public to see if there's interest in a revamp.
If the community really doesn't want to do that, then what other facilities could council provide to satisfy the needs and demands of the artistic community?
It's estimated nearly $500,000 of council money will need to be allocated refurbishing the building and set aside for this year's business plan.
We don't want to just keep deferring it. We want to really make up our mind about it. What's the future for this for this facility?
To have your say, visit our Facebook page. Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
Broken Hill AFL export Isaac Cummings has extended his contract with the Greater Western Sydney Giants. The former North Bulldogs signed on with the club for the next 2 years. The young defender was drafted to the Giants in 2016 and has been playing for the reserve squad. Isaac is hoping to make an AFL debut this season. Meantime, Broken Hill's harness racing season will come to an end this week with the club's biggest night on the calendar. The Carnival of Cups kick-starts what's expected to be a huge weekend of racing in the town.
It's the Harness Racing Club's night of nights.
You don't get much better than the level that we've got with the Carnival of Cups.
Organisers have been hard at work preparing the track for the event. Crews have spent hours grading to make sure it's in prime condition. The Carnival of Cups has always led the charge for a big 2 days of racing in the Silver City, with St Pat's held the very next day.
I think the weekend as a whole, you know, when you sort of look at St Patrick's as what it represents for the last 80 years, 100 years, whatever it is, I can't really sort of put a number on it with that, but I think if you look back on it, it's always been that way.
There's 6 races pencilled in for the night, including the Rocky Baker Memorial Pacing Cup, which garners the biggest prize money of the season.
It doesn't get much better than this in Broken Hill. For harness racing, Carbine Chemicals, our major sponsor of the big race, a $14,000 race.
And it's fun for young and old.
I mean, we've got face painting, we've got sort of the pony rides, we've got all those things sort of happening. Plenty of eats, plenty of drinks.
Race 1 starts just before 7:30. Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Be a great night. Make sure you get along. Time now for fishing tips.
Welcome another week around the Gulf Fishing Tips from Port Pirie. We're going to give you a few tips, a little different this week. So we're talking around the area of Woods Creek and all that sort of stuff, Woods Point. You should be able to get yourself a nice feed of early King George whiting. With this cold snap that's come in, don't be surprised to see some of them around there. If we move around to Eastern Shoal, this is a little bit deeper water and you might find those early King George whiting there as well. When we're out at Port Davis, if you have a look straight from the mouth directly out in some of the deeper gutters, you should find yourself a nice feed of snapper. When we come back towards home at Port Pirie along the Talawi Beach and Roona Bay area, you should be able to find yourself some yellowfin whiting. Work hard with them because they are getting a little bit sketchy at the moment, but if you catch none of those, don't forget the blue swimmer crabs on the way home.
G'day and welcome to this week's fishing tips from Port Augusta, Jewel of the North. Well, it's the start of the long weekend, so it's a beautiful time to get out and get into the fish and crabs. Still crabs around. The first few squid are starting to turn up off the shacks. The tides have turned around now. The best tip is to get out early, get your crabs, then try for some squid along the shacks in the afternoon. Some big flatter getting caught out in the middle banks and also some salmon up in Port Patterson.
Hi, Whalers fishing report this week. Still plenty of crabs crawling through Whyalla. Really good raking down towards Cowlard's Landing, and if you go north of Whyalla around Fitzgerald Bay, some really nice big blueies down there to be raked up. Also some good silver whiting in those areas as well. For the boat anglers, there's been a few King George whiting and squid starting to show up in front of the Mount Young grounds. The squid can be very timid, but best drifting for those. Get some good quality jigs, guys, and you should be able to get amongst them. Snapper front have been hit and miss across Whyalla. There's a few fish out towards the Eastern Shoal and along the Ward Spit grounds, and the rip again has been very hit and miss, but always worth a crack.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, there's been quite a few garfish caught over the last week in front of Stenros. Heading out wide of Thistle Island, there's been some good nanagai and some nice snapper caught on some of the lumps. And down along the south coast of Port Lincoln, from Sleaford to Wanna, there has been some good schools of salmon working the coastline down there. Out of the group, there's been some nice whiting caught, along with some gar and some snook out that way. And down in Coffin Bay, there's been some whiting throughout the bay system, and also some gar, tommies, and a few salmon trout down there as well. Up at Venus Bay, some nice whiting have been moving into the bay over the last couple of weeks, and there's even been quite a few whiting caught off the local jetty, as well as by local boaties. Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you again with more fishing tips next week.
Stay with us after the break. Amy will be here with all the weather, and Amy, the autumn temperatures are returning.
Indeed they will, Fraser, with a change coming through after a warm weekend, and I'll have all the details next. Welcome back. Port Augusta got to a top of 30 today, 26 in Whyalla and a cooler 23 in Port Lincoln. Meanwhile, temperatures crept towards the low 30s in all other centres. Checking the satellite, and the high pressure system passing over the state is continuing to keep skies mostly clear. Some cloud over the southwest, however it is staying dry. If you're planning to spend some time on the water tomorrow, there will be northeasterly winds up to 20 knots. Seas will reach 1.5 metres and the sun will pop up at 18 past 7. Taking a look at tomorrow's conditions, and it's set to warm up as we head into the weekend. Port Augusta will reach 35, 28 in Coffin Bay. Meanwhile, temperatures will range from the high 20s to mid 30s in all other districts. Looking towards the weekend, and a cooler change will pass through Port Lincoln with showers and a top of 21 on Sunday. Cleve is also in for some wet and windy weather despite the warm temperatures on Saturday. Predicted showers also in Woodna with temperatures hovering in the mid-20s on Sunday and Monday. Further up the Gulf, and temperatures will drop to the high 20s in Whyalla heading into next week. After a very warm Saturday, Port Augusta will also see a cool change, while Kadina can expect some showers before a mostly sunny 25 on Monday. Temperatures in Port Pirie will also drop to the mid-20s early next week, while Clare will reach 23 on Monday. Meanwhile, Broken Hill will continue to stay slightly warmer despite windy weather on Sunday and a top of 33. But Fraser, while a change is expected early next week, there should be enough sunshine to enjoy the weekend around the Spencer Gulf.
Time to enjoy the sun. Thanks, Amy. And that's Southern Cross News for now. Thanks for your company. Good night.